मम ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितमेन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। व्यासाय विष्णु रूपाय व्यास रूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मण निधये वशिष्ठाय नमो नमः। So very soon we are celebrating Vyasa Purnima. Vyasadev, he defies human intelligence, because when we study about Vyasadev, it is known that he compiled the Vedas, Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, Mahabharata, 18 Puranas. So it is but natural one will not be able to agree that one person can compile so much. Mahabharata alone has 100,000 verses and more. Right? It took 3 years for him to compile. And imagine all the Puranas, then Vedas, then Upanishad, the Brahma Sutras. So therefore, generally amongst the scholar, because they want to conceive everything based upon human capacity. When we conceive everything based upon human capacity, that gives rise to some kind of, pratyaksha praman or direct evidence. And therefore, one of the great misunderstanding among such scholar, we can understand their misunderstanding because they have not conceived anything. It is out of their curriculum. Therefore, they consider Vyasa to be a committee. Vyasadev is not a person, it's a committee. So it is understandable. One can make such a mistake. But when we understand Vyasaya Vishnu Rupaya, the great activities, whenever we see in this world, while experiencing human limitations, right, that is a normal practice, however great one may be, along with their great potential, we also see their blunders, their limitations. Therefore, somebody said, do not tell me about the blunders of the ordinary. Do not tell me the greatness of the great people. Tell me the limitation of the great people. Because a small blunder of a great person has an Himalayan effect. So because Vyasadeva doesn't fall into these kind of categories, and while experiencing human limitation, what do we experience once in a while? We also experiencing something beyond human capacity. Right? Therefore, Gita explains that Yadyad Vibhutimat Sattvam, that splendor, the spark of the splendor which gives rise to wow factor. My God, how is it possible? Even take for example, ordinarily, amongst the cricketers, the statistics of Donald Brodman, much higher than Sachin. Right? 99.94. It doesn't look like anybody is going to break that record. Or when you see the hands of Zakir Hussain when he would play tabla, or when Bismillah Khan would play his, the Shahnai, right? It is beyond human capacity, even though they are humans. So when you connect similarly like that with Vyasadev, it makes all the sense that one person can do this because he is not simply a human, he is divine, he is Vishnu Avatara, Shaktavesh Avatara. That is one factor of Vyasadev. For us, there is no problem in accepting that he compiled all that. But if somebody claims, no, it's a committee, doesn't matter, because the content, the substance, the knowledge is so profound. How you take it, yes, there is a problem, but as long as you take the knowledge, you come into the flow. Another beautiful idea of Vyasadev, like we were doing this Vada seminar, and we spoke about cognitive bias. Some big psychologists have found out every human being has certain bias. Every historian, it doesn't matter how sincere, how deep, how great they are, the true historian will be confessing very clearly that history, most of the time, it is simply imagination, speculation, and rest is prejudice. And this was spoken by none other than the great historian Will Durant, who spent 50 years writing volumes of books. But there is a humility of uncertainty while writing a historical reality. That shows he's a good student, not claiming that whatever I've written is perfect and all right. So that cognitive bias, what he mentioned, prejudice, Vyasadev, for that matter, he represents that system of parampara, Guru Purnima, or precisely called as Vyasa Purnima. What is the speciality of Vyasadev? The speciality of Vyasadev is that he doesn't have the prejudice. He doesn't take side. He represents that Guru Tattva which is connecting to the Satya, Param Satya, right? Because he's connecting to Param Satya, his answers, his compilation doesn't have the prejudice. The beauty of Mahabharata, you take for example, the beauty of Mahabharata, if you are a devotee of a Pandava, if you are a follower of a Pandava, if you are a great admirer of Arjuna, what does Vyasadev do? While compiling their stories, if you are very carefully reading, he does not speak only good side of the Pandavas. He has the courage to express the limitation of the Pandavas also. Whether it is Yudhishthira Maharaj, whether it is Arjun, whether it is Bhima, Nakul, Sahadev, Draupadi, he does that. Right? Therefore, when you read the Mahabharata as it is clearly, it may give rise to questions. So, what is the difference between the Pandavas and the Kauravas if you do not understand the entire context? And Vyasadev provides that entire context while being completely neutral to the reality, being part of the Kuru family. Time to time he also gets involved. He is involved but is totally indifferent. Right? The principle of Guru is exactly what is presented by Vyasadev. Anasakta, right? At the same time, empathetic. There is no attachment. Therefore, the Upanishad explain that what are the qualifications of a teacher. It is explained that he is Samitpani, Shrotriyam and Brahmanishtam. These are the three primary qualifications. Shrotriyam. Shrotriyam means he has heard, right, in parampara. By hearing from the elders, from the varishtas, from the matured, your learning becomes more and more deeper. Shrotriyam, Samitpani, Brahmanishtam. Samitpani is the process of yajna. Yajna is not simply performing yajna, it is the life of yajna, dedication, commitment, likhna ho, research karna, whatever it is. Vyasadev represents. And Brahmanishtam, at all condition of life, the spirit of Shraddha, unwavering, seamless faith in God, in Brahma, cannot be disturbed. One interesting point, when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, the great Vyasadeva, after compiling everything, he had the courage to approach Narad Muni about his vulnerability, his pain point. That I have done everything, my dear teacher, my dear Narad Muni ji, my dear Guru, but why I am not satisfied? Right? It takes great honesty, it takes great authenticity. After being such a great personality, still considering that I am not satisfied. Yes, he was not satisfied. We know the purpose why he was not satisfied, because he had not compiled the beautiful stories, pastimes of loving devotion towards the Supreme Brahman, especially the Krishna Leela. We know that. But the point here is Vyasadeva had that courage, because what does he represent? A Guru and Shishya, they represent exploration of the infinite. Jitna, as much as you explore, that much you will feel unfulfilled. Now he approached Narad Muni. Do you know, Shriman Narad Muni also, Manasa Putra of Lord Brahma, the Supreme Bhagavan gave him the glimpse, gave him the association. Then Narad Muni went around looking, for traveling across, getting that experience. Then he became a Narad Muni, the eternal among the Rishis, among the Rishis of the Devas. It is Narad Muni. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. That same Narad Muni in the Chandogya Upanishad, right, in the Chandogya Upanishad, the same Narad Muni is approaching Sanat Kumar. And how does he approach? He approaches Sanat Kumar exactly how Vyasadeva approaches Narad Muni, asking that I am not completely satisfied. I have studied everything. Whatever you want to know what Narad Muni studied, he explains that to his teacher Sanat Kumar. तभी समझ में आता है कि what all he had studied. He said, after doing all this, I am not still satisfied. So that is one core character of Guru Parampara. A Guru is always a student in the presence of his teacher. The Parampara of learning and Parampara of teaching does not stop for a Guru also, because he will always remain disciple to his Guru. The position of Shishya is more real for that Guru than the position of being Guru to his disciple, because his position as a Guru to his disciple is relative. It is sapekshita. But he being disciple to his Guru and the Parampara beyond him also is a nirapekshita satya. No? Exploration, learning more and more. And therefore, the Taittiriya Upanishad also explains this point. When a Guru and disciple when a Guru start teaching a disciple, what does he do? Sahana vanattu, sahana bunattu, sahaviryam karavavahi, tejasvinam. Right? Both of us will study together. Both of us will grow together. So that is one of the core principle of the Sanatan Dharma, Vaishnava or Vedic philosophy, right? Never changes. So therefore, the position of a guru, the position of a teacher, the position of an acharya, it is as good as Vishnu. He is Sakshad Haritvena for a student, because Lord Hari, he is flowing through the kindness, the knowledge of the teacher. Still he is not God, right? He represents Bhagavan, but still is not Bhagavan. He is Sevaka Bhagavan. That's what we speak of Balramji also. So therefore it is but natural different kinds of people approach. The subject is Vyasa, Dhaumya Rishi and Parashuramji. Right? Nowadays the market for spirituality, the market for religion, market for tirtha, everything you see, people have the tendency to explore. In every respect, young people are, I don't know how they're able to harmonize between having a great party and also coming to the temple for some kind of learning exploration. In our time, we didn't do that. Right? If you want to come to the temple, if you want to be connected, you were cutting off everything. So there is a great, great energy in regards to learning while enjoying also. A very, very sincere exploration. So in such a condition, you will find hundreds of teachers who are, coming up, teaching, educating, initiating people, giving diksha to them, giving knowledge to them, large number of people. It's a great sign. It's a good sign. At the same time, when we study scripture, there are students who are also deceptive in their nature. They want the benefit of a guru, but on their own terms and condition. Karna, for that matter, it doesn't matter what knowledge, Adhyatma Vidya, or for that matter, Dhanur Vidya. When Dronacharya decided not to teach, for your information, Karna was the student of Dronacharya. You can read the book Karna on Trial. So he was the student. When Dronacharya denied teaching Brahmastra to Karna and Ashwatthama, right? Oh, because Karna was from lower caste, therefore he was, no. Brahmana Putra, his own son Ashwatthama, was not taught and Karna was not taught. What did Dronacharya say? He said, I teach tapasvi Brahmana and self-controlled Kshatriya. Neither you are tapasvi, my dear son, and nor self-controlled Karna. Therefore, I cannot teach you Brahmastra. He taught many things. So then Karna said, okay, if you don't teach, I will go to somebody else. I will go to Parshuramji. Now, yes, generally the understanding is that Parshuramji had told that I will not teach any Kshatriyas. But there was a student who was a Kshatriya. The great Bhishma Dev was a Kshatriya. He learned from Parshuramji. So there were exception to rule, because in Sanatan Dharma again, the rules are strong, no doubt, but there is an element of flexibility. Karna came to Parshuram, right? He didn't know that he was a Kshatriya, but certainly he knew that he had a Kshatriya spirit. He certainly knew that he was not a Brahmana, right? He learned from Parshuramji. Parshuramji was very pleased with him, and he taught him the Brahmastra also. But what happened? he was exposed. He was exposed because of Indra or his destiny, his Daiva, whatever you want to call. He was making Dronacharya or Parshuramji's take rest on his lap. Lap became his pillow, and lap became his very cause of destruction, because a Indra Kida, the small insect but very powerful, was drilling Karna's thigh. He was bleeding, he was in great pain, but because the Parshuramji was lying, resting there, he couldn't move, he didn't shake. And when the warm blood of Karna touched Parshuramji, he got up and instantly realized, you cannot be a Brahmana, because the physical endurance, tapasyas are different, but the pain, the battlefield pain, is a special quality of a Kshatriya to tolerate. Right? In the battlefield of Kurukshetra, in the battlefield of so many great warriors, Sambhaji Maharaj, right? They are bleeding, so many arrows have entered into their body. The sword has chopped up their many parts of the limb, but still they have such a great spirit of fighting. No? So Karna was exposed. He said, you cannot be Kshatriya. And Parshuramji cursed him, saying that he did not take away the Brahmastra from him. That is another tragedy. He said, whenever you need it the most, this weapon will not come to your aid. And exactly that is what happened. The knowledge was taken away from him when he needed it the most. Similarly, we see that when we need this knowledge, that very point, when we are supposed to apply this knowledge, if your intentions, they are different from the original idea, what does it do? The knowledge remains with us, but the application will not happen only. That was the tragedy of Karna. And on the other hand, there are people like Dronacharya. If Dronacharya was there 5,000 years ago, now also are there who are in the form of a teacher. They have a role of a guru. But what is their agenda? Dronacharya's agenda was not to enlighten the Pandavas. Dronacharya's agenda was not to make the Pandavas cultured. They were already cultured. Dronacharya's agenda was not to make Kauravas refined. They were already refined. Right? They could not be converted to being very refined, because that was not the purpose of Dronacharya. Dronacharya wanted to teach the Pandavas, no doubt. And he was a great teacher in teaching the skill, but the purpose of teaching that skill is to invest in them so that there is a greater returns from them. This is not Guru. No, this is not a teacher. These are people who are good at teaching, but they have the agenda of getting more from their student. Imagine once the teaching was over, Dronacharya, without hesitation, he asked the Pandavas and the Kurus together. He said, I want Guru Dakshina in the form of capturing Drupad. I want Drupad to be captured. I want to teach him lesson. The whole purpose of Dronacharya, of course, for most people, Dronacharya is the Guru of the Pandavas. You go and ask anybody, those who are not part of this class, if you go and ask people, who is the Guru of the Pandavas? They'll always say, Guru of the Pandavas is Dronacharya. Yes, he liked Arjuna. He had great affection for Pandavas, but he had an agenda beyond the Pandavas also. If not Pandavas, it's okay, anybody. He stayed with Duryodhana. Not even once he came to the forest asking for the well-being of the Pandavas. Vidura came. right? Krishna came, so many sages met them, but he never came. So that is one kind of teacher you will find. The parampara of Dronacharya, very, you can respect them, but you cannot expect, transparency from them. Then the barometer, our ideal is Vyasadev, right? So then comes the teacher of the Pandavas. His name is Dhaumya Rishi. The commitment in learning does not only come from the student. The commitment to teach also comes from the teacher. ज्ञान देना और ज्ञान लेना दोनों को उतना ही तीव्रता से कमिटमेंट होता है. It is not one-sided. Unfortunately nowadays, the big gurus, spiritual teachers are like celebrities. They have millions of followers, no doubt. But are they disciples? Vidyarthi hai. Because Vidyarthi requires to be sitting at the feet of the teacher, learning from them, if not all the Shastras, at least some scriptures they have to teach. Yeah, you can get inspiration from anybody. They can be, some kind of teacher. But here we are talking about learning, right? Shrotriyam, Samitpani. Shrotriyam, he has learned sitting at the feet of a guru. Upanishad, Upadekshantite Jnanam, right? Rendered service to him. So Pandavas, when they were in the forest in the first time, when Dhritarashtra tried to burn them, but he was not successful because Vidura, the great mentor of the Pandavas, protected. Vidurji was like a mentor, he was like a teacher, he was like a well-wisher, he was like a strategist, he was like a Mahamantri, he was like an extension of Paramatma to the Pandavas in one sense. Always there in their most difficult times. Right? Vidura protected the Pandavas in their most difficult times. They escaped from that Lakshagraha and they were moving from one place to other place. That was their first vanvas in one sense. And this vanvas, they had to keep the secret. When Pandavas survived, their survival was not even conveyed to Bhishma, what to speak of other Kurus. The news of Pandavas being dead was very safe for the Pandavas. I think Shivaji Maharaj was used because he studied Mahabharata. When he came from Agra, escaping from one of the greatest story in the history, when he escaped from Agra, he kept his son Sambhaji Maharaj somewhere in Mathura, spreading the news of his death, sending the news of performing Shraddha ceremony for the son, so that they will not try to look for him. मृत्यु का समाचार उनके जीवन सुरक्षा का सबसे बड़ा कारण बन गया. So Pandavas kept that. Even Balramji did not know about them, of their survival. So they are moving about. At one place, Arjuna had a conflict with Chitraratha, a Gandharva. This Gandharva was basically, he was taking bath in Ganga with his Gandharva, Sakhis, and the Pandavas approached. And then there was argumentation. He said, you cannot come to this river. This is not your time. This is our time. यहाँ celestial लोग आएंगे, तुम कैसे आ सकते हो, तुम साधारण मनुष्य हो. And Arjuna said, you don't know the law. For every other river it could be like that. For Ganga there is no such law. It is not your authority place. It is our place also. So there was a conflict and Arjuna and Chitraratha had a battle and Arjuna burnt his Ratha. He became Dagda Ratha. And then Gandharva extended his friendship with Arjuna. And Arjuna was kind enough. And from there, they asked one Brahmana, they came in touch with one Brahmana, Purohita. He said, my dear Pandavas, you have two problems. One is you have finished your education, but you are not in your next ashram. आपको स्थिरता नहीं, आपको stability नहीं है. That is the time they decided to get married. And the second, he said, you are finished your education, but you need a Purohit. You know, आपको हित करने वाले एक ऋषि की आवश्यकता है. For people like Pandavas, Guru has to be constantly available. Right? Kyunki their contribution, their decisions, you know, in regards to making decision for the entire chak, the entire country, entire Rashtra, it is not ordinary. So they need that constant association, getting that knowledge. See, therefore, the whole Vedic literature is very dynamic. For some people, you need constant. For some people, you need some time. Like typical Gurukul, you go stay there for some time. Krishna, when he was in Gurukul, he stayed there for only 64 days and learned everything. Pandava stayed for many more years. And this Brahmana told him, you need a great teacher. And he said, you go there. And he gave the name of Dhaumya Rishi, the brother of Asita. So they approached Dhaumya Rishi. After approaching Dhaumya Rishi, imagine the commitment of Dhaumya Rishi. This is another ideal representation of Guru. Very fascinating. I had done 3-day seminar in the Mahabharata session and Dhaumya and Vyasadev. So therefore the real teacher of the Pandavas, yes, Dronacharya is there, who is more famous, being the teacher of the Pandavas, but one who actually spent more time with the Pandavas. One who stayed with the Pandavas for so many years. He was committed. He said, I'll be with you, hell or high water. Whatever happens to you, my dear Pandavas, I am there with you in your good times and in your bad times. Once he accepted that commitment to the disciples. So इसलिए commitment is not only from one side. I remember talking to one great Veda Vidyarthi. He became Veda Pandit also. Wrote many books. He was telling once, he was almost like 44, 48-year-old. And his father wanted him to study the Vedas of his branch. Being born in a Brahman family, a practicing Brahmana with Brahmanatva. He said, my dear child, you know, I couldn't afford to teach you Vedas because of the poverty. You know, Udar Bharan became more important. At some point of time, if you can manage to study, that will be really good. And this person, when he was 40, 48-year-old, when almost everything was kind of settling down, he wanted to fulfill. He had the desire to study the Vedas and he wanted to make that commitment fulfilled, which was given by his father. When he approached his Guru to learn Veda Guru, then Veda Guru said, Beta, what can I teach you now? Because you are so old, 48-year-old, Veda mantras are not like you read them. You know, you need breath control. You need proper asanas. You need to have the power of hearing properly. You need to have the power of reciting them properly. It is like being very precise. He said, my dear Guru, he said, this is my father's wish and I also want to. He said, okay, I'll do it. They committed for each other. He said, every day you come to my place. Come from your home to my place without wearing shoes, cleanly dressed, properly putting the tilak and everything. You come and I will teach. Every day would do that. One day the student was not able to reach him because he had an asthma attack. But the Guru reached there. He said, it is my commitment to teach you. Therefore I am here. And this is not in Satya Yuga. This is not in Treta Yuga. This was in just 50 years ago. Right? So Dhaumya Rishi had that commitment to the Pandavas. Right? So Dhaumya is like that Guru who is not well known. but is extremely impactful for the Pandavas. The commitment happened. Dhaumya Rishi traveled with the Pandavas. Eventually, when they got married to Draupadi, Dhaumya Rishi was there. They came to Hastinapur, they expanded their kingdom. Dhaumya Rishi was there. He was part of the Rajasuya sacrifice along with Drona, along with Krupacharya. So many sages were there. Pandavas lost everything in the gambling match. Imagine losing absolutely everything, including their upper clothes also. You know, Duryodhan and Karna were not only interested in making Draupadi naked by taking their upavastra. When you do not have that upavastra, it is considered as good as having no clothes. They caused so much of humiliation to the Pandavas. And if you read the Mahabharata in the Adi Parva conclusion, when the Pandavas were walking out from Hastinapur, this Dhaumya Rishi was chanting mantras from Yamasukta. And Vidura and Sanjay give the purport to Dhritarashtra. Arey Baba, he was chanting Yamasukta. He's going to come back here. And how the Pandavas went out of Hastinapur. Next 12 years, when the Pandavas were in exile for next 12 years, he was there with them, receiving no remuneration for the Pandavas. Right? Committed to the student, stayed with them for 12 years, went with them everywhere. When Arjuna was in the Himalayas, in the Swargaloka, they were feeling separation. They all traveled across all the 4 sides of Bharat. And what did Dhaumya Rishi do? Dhaumya Rishi introduced the Pandavas to many other rishis. He was like their main teacher, but he introduced them to other teachers. Somebody taught them Sharanagati, Markanda Rishi. Somebody taught them Smriti Vidya. Somebody taught them, the gambling also. So they learned many things from many teachers introduced by Dhaumya Rishi. He was the one who told the Pandavas after meeting Shaunaka Rishi that they should try for Akshaya Patra to feed 60,000 students who were traveling with Yudhishthira Maharaj. 12 साल तक रुके उनके साथ, went across everywhere. And that 1 year during the incognito, naturally, how do you recognize? Imagine if Dhaumya Rishi was around with the Pandavas, they would come to know Pandavas are here. Because the Shishya and Guru had become one with each other in regards to their purpose, in regards to learning, and in regards to teaching. That is the only 1 year when Dhaumya Rishi was not with the Pandavas, because they had to be in incognito. And once that 1 year was over, he was back with the Pandavas. If you read in the Bhagavatam, when Parikshit Maharaj was given name as Parikshit, Dhaumya Rishi had no issue sharing the Kula Guru position along with Kripacharya, who was in one sense directly indirectly responsible for slaughtering the sons of the Pandavas. Kripacharya, then Kritavarma, Ashwathama, they were all together slaughtering the sons of the Pandavas. But still, because he was a Kripacharya, he had a connection. He was not directly involved. He could have told the Pandavas, but he was there fighting on behalf of the Kurus. But when the Pandavas came, you don't find anywhere Dhaumya Rishi telling the Pandavas, if he's around, I will not be there with you. Because they were less human. They had less human emotions. Of course, they were human, right? But they were empowered to such an extent that transparency. Imagine when you're such a teacher who is taking responsibility of your life, guiding you. Of course, Pandavas deserved, as I said, but at the same time, historically, if you ask the ordinary Hindus, even many devotees, if you ask them, who is the Guru of the Pandavas, immediately will say Dronacharya. Or maximum will say Kripacharya was also their Guru. Right? We see Parashuram ji, how he dealt with Karna. We saw Dronacharya, how he dealt with the Pandavas, and we saw how our Dhaumya Rishi dealt with the Pandavas. So therefore, the whole process of learning, the whole process of growing, it is so inherently connected from learning from the teacher. It is uncompromising. You cannot make any other system other than this system of learning, getting to understand, asking question, upadekshantite, jnaninas tattvardarshina, both committed to each other. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, when we study Shikshavalli also, the commitment of the teacher toward the student, when the student comes to his guru's ashram, he has no other project, right? There is no other thing for the teacher other than making children empowered, making them qualified. I recommend, if you go and see the Taittiriya Upanishad, especially Shikshavalli, where the convocation happens for the student. When the convocation happens, the teacher with full blessings, when they had spent at least 12 years with the teacher, right, in those times, sometime 5 years also, what they would do, there would be a convocation ceremony. And the convocation ceremony would always tell the student the integral approach to life. Matra devo bhavo, pitra devo bhavo, acharya devo bhavo, atiti devo bhavo, satyam vada, dharmam chara, and then also the teacher would say that when you find knowledge, when you find that devotion, wherever it is coming from, whichever direction it is coming from, because he's so rooted in his own tradition, spending so much of time with his guru, learned so much, but still the guru is telling, beta, you know what, you will find somebody, bow down to them, respect them, learn from them, if it is worthy to learn from them. The student has become so capable, he knew what to filter, what not to filter, what to accept, what not to accept, because he had become an eternal student. Because when you come out of the Gurukul, it is not that learning is completed. In fact, learning has become one's condition. And therefore, as I mentioned, Vyasadev, right, after compiling all that, he showed dissatisfaction. And that dissatisfaction in Vyasadev gave rise to beautiful book, Grantha, the essence, the summum bonum, right, the juice without the pulp, without the seeds. Nigama kalpa taror galitam phalam. Why like that? It is not that other knowledge is cancelled. If you need knowledge of Dhanur Vidya, Artha Vidya, yes, you are part of this world. You are not like Shukdev Goswami. Like, when Vashishta Maharshi's son was Shakti, Shakti's son was Parashar, Parashar's son was Vyasadev, Vyasadev's son was Shukdev Goswami. Shukdev Goswami also studied Mahabharata from his father. Bhagavad Mahabharata explains. But because he was not part of this world, he hardly lived in this world. Yes, he lived in this world, but he hardly lived in the world in regards to doing nitty-gritties of life. Imagine you go to somebody's house as long as they would milking the cow, and after that walk away. But even also he studied the Mahabharata, right? That Shukdev Goswami, that is the connection of Vyasadev, right? And how much he contributed. And some of the glimpses of Vyasa's life, how beautifully, how did he interfere in Pandavas' life? He was like giving a hint of Daiva. He had given hint to the Pandavas that, you will be marrying Draupadi. He was the one who had given hint to Satyavati, Ambalika and Ambika that this is not the time for you to stay here. You have to leave, come with me, because there will be conflict among the Pandavas and the Kurus, and I don't want to see you. He took them. And that same Vyasadev, when Yudhishthira Maharaj was bewildered in regards to the killing of Shishupal, such a beautiful ceremony, but Shishupal was killed. So he had asked Vyasadev, why this happened? Such a beautiful ceremony. So Vyasadev gave a hint to him. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, I think, chose to not understand it clearly. He said, my dear Yudhishthira, using you as a falakram, using you as a upakaran, after 14 years, 13-14 years, there will be great disaster awaiting for Kuru Vamsha, the entire Bharat Bhumi. And Dharmaraj took a wrong vow. I will always follow my superior, whatever they say. That's how Dhritarashtra invited him. Vyasadev warned the Kurus. Right, that very Vyasadev, when the Pandavas were suffering, he came there. When the battle was over, before the battle, so he predicted what will happen. Indication, not giving. So Daiva is not very concrete. It comes as an indication, and Vyasadev represents that. And in this, the Vyasadev pacified the Kurus after the death of all the sons. He pacified Kunti Devi, and pacification of Kunti and Dhritarashtra are so different from each other. I always get fascinated by this part when Vyasadeva was asked by Kunti Devi. Such an authentic personality. Right? There is no question of misusing the knowledge. And she asked, my dear Vyasadev, I was not right to Karna, no fault of Kunti, but she was willing to take the responsibility of whatever happened to Karna. She was not criminal, but she was willing to take that responsibility of a mother. So she told Vyasadeva about her pain. And what do you think Vyasadeva answered? One of the most fascinating answer. Right? Vyasadeva said, my dear Kunti, the powerful people have the power to digest. शक्तिशाली लोग को जीर्ण करने की क्षमता है. Rather than saying, okay, you do tapasya, you do puja, you do this, you do that, he said, you have the power to digest it. Right? In this way, Vyasadeva giving answer at different occasion to different people. Profound answer, perfect communication, encouraging, giving confidence, sometime reprimanding, warning people, encouraging people. And after doing all these things, sitting on the bank of Saraswati river, imagine, with the help of Ganesh Maharaj Ji, for 3 years, he compiled the human itihas in such a beautiful story form. What is the beauty of Vyasa's itihasa? Vyasa's itihasa is not fact-centric, because facts are very boring. Therefore, if you ask any young people, medical doctor, engineers, MBAs, studied philosophy, they will tell about their subject very nicely, but they are so poor at history. Because the history, whether you study in America, whether you study in India, unless you are specially interested and invest time in studying history, people are so poor in history, and therefore they repeat the history. But Vyasa's history book, it is certainly itihas in regards to the stories. But the greater understanding of this itihas, it talks about the substance of life eternally, how it functions. That is the substance of itihas. Vyasadeva is presenting the substance, the seed, the root of life, but giving a beautiful tree in the name of the story of the Pandavas. But Duryodhan in Vyasadev's Mahabharata certainly dies. But Duryodhana does not die. He continues to exist. Arjuna certainly goes back to the spiritual realm, but Arjuna continued to remain as a principle, as a Siddhanta. Right? So therefore, Vyasa's Mahabharata, and what to speak of Vyasa's Bhagavatam, what to speak of the compilation of all the Vedas, he's everywhere. So therefore, if the legacy of Vyasadeva has to be maintained, one has to continue to remain as a Vidyarthi, finding gurus like Dhaumya Rishi, right, who are there for the student in their good times and in their bad times, teaching, educating, and self-learning also, right? Then what will happen? Such connection, such understanding of Guru Shishya, which was represented by so many sampradayas, the Vaishnava sampradaya, or in the musical tradition also, the classical musical tradition also, the parampara remains completely fresh, offering that gratitude in our own principle, like the parampara of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. What is the greatest pride of Prabhupada is his connection to parampara. And what will be his greatest satisfaction? That the parampara continues in the forward. Right? When somebody tampers that in the name of glorification of their guru, disconnecting them to parampara, stopping the system of parampara, the learning becomes very imaginary. Learning takes an assumption idea, but the freshness of learning will always remain when we have the opportunity to be always student, learning from guru, who remains the student for his guru. In this way, the freshness of parampara continues, and at times, along with Vyasadeva, Sri Krishna also appears, Lord Narayana appears, Nasta Kalena Mahata, Yogo Nasta Parantapa. When apparently, when he feels that there is a gap, either Bhagwan himself or his expansion in the form of Vyasadeva will keep coming. That is the beauty and that is the assurance. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Yes. Yes, Naman Kashyap ji, you can write the question. I don't know whether it is, how does it work? Okay. Pratik, how do they ask questions? Priya Chaitanya?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, they can write their questions in the chat box.
Yeah, so people have raised their fingers. हाथ तो उठाया लोगों ने. Is there a way they can unmute and ask?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. What is the qualification by which one gets a guru like Dhaumya Rishi? Yeah, first of all, understanding that there was somebody like Dhaumya Rishi existed, right? When we study Dhaumya Rishis, again, as I said, there is a qualification for commitment from the guru and commit from the disciple. When that commitment happens, it's not that we want we want Dhaumya Rishi like guru only, something closer to that also. Even somebody who is walking the journey, learning about Dhaumya Rishi, or such people like Vyasadev, right? Then what happens? Otherwise people say, okay, unless I get Dhaumya Rishi like guru, I will not accept. Unless I'll get Prabhupada like guru, so stop the parampara. So that shows the arrogance of a disciple who is a potential disciple. The principle is very simple. We can find faults with many teachers. Oh, these are not qualified, better give a practical exam, practical principle. Okay, there should not be a parampara only, it stops here. But a disciple should also find in his own heart ki why I am not getting something tangible, because I am not as sincere, or I am in the path of sincerity as the Pandavas. Therefore, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is explained that by the grace of Krishna, by the grace of that knowledge, right, that grace of the system parampara, you will find a guru. Sometime you will find a guru, and sometime guru will find you. For the Pandavas, Dronacharya found them, and from Dhaumya Rishi, Pandavas found him, right? So therefore the principle is very simple, that what is my yogyata to find Sadguru, where I can get more of his association. So when we are sincere and looking forward for such connection, तो आपको निश्चित रूप से मिलेगा. That's not a issue. How do we detach as well as be empathetic? In the yesterday we were discussing how Krishna speaks about, Kapil Muni speaks to Mother Devati, Satam Prasangad Mama Virya Samvido. That when somebody is listening to the Virya Gatha of Krishna, Satam Prasangad Mama Virya Samvido, my Virya Gatha, right? When we listen, one of the quality of a Shishya, one who is practicing yoga, he is more sahasi, he is more valorous in learning, in growing, in contributing. It is not that Adhyatma makes us inactive, physically, mentally, emotionally, intellectually, in the name of, okay, I've got everything now, I don't need to do anything else. That is a redundancy creeps in, unconsciously arrogance creeps in. If you are not always a student, as Vyasa, they became student in front of Narad Muni in his ripened, mature realization, and Narad Muni also became disciple. He was always disciple, but he had the courage to go and approach. What are your thoughts of current issues in Maharashtra regards to language? Yes, it is a purely selfish political idea, right? I come from a background where, especially whenever people are so radical about only their language, then what happens? They don't grow. And if you ask any of these people who are fighting for their mother tongue, they don't read anything other than one stupid newspapers. The classical Marathi, so profound. I'm not a Maharashtrian, right? But I guarantee you, most people don't send their children to study any Marathi language. Imagine how gulam we are. Okay, Hindi language is my language. It may not be my mother tongue. There are many words in Hindi are more closer to my South Indian language, Kannada. Mitra, Shatru, Sukha, Dukha, right? वो नजदीक है, मेरे निकट है. एंड इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज से मेरी भाषा से कोई लेना देना नहीं है, बट आई एम लर्निंग. व्हाई? बिकॉज इट इज अ लैंग्वेज फॉर यूटिलिटी. Language for utility. Today only I was talking to some businessman. He is one of the biggest businessmen in China. Was meeting. He said that man does not know any other language than his mother tongue. He does big business. Whether the Tamil politician or the Maharashtrian politician, they do not have a problem learning English. Of course they should learn English. But क्यों इतनी गुलामी इंग्लिश के प्रति? If you study every country, the European country, Japanese, Russians, Chinese, Koreans, they study everything in mother tongue. Their engineering, their medicine, सब कुछ अपनी भाषा में पढ़ते हैं. कितना तरक्की करते हैं? क्योंकि स्वाभिमान है. You know, the sad story, right? Who was telling me? 2 days ago, somebody was telling, if you go, yes, one politician was telling me, one Marathi politician was telling, he said, in the headquarters of Maratha Samraj in Satara, you know, there is a government college, a school, only 25 kids are there studying in Marathi medium. Only 25 बच्चे. Even गांव में इंग्लिश मीडियम स्कूल है जहां टीचर लोग ठीक से इंग्लिश बोल भी नहीं पाते. नीदर यू लर्न इंग्लिश नॉर यू लर्न मराठी प्रॉपरली, बट यू कम टू स्ट्रीट एंड फाइट एंड बीट पीपल. You know, that is obnoxious of the highest order, right? But if you learn in your own mother, of course, if you learn in your mother tongue, what will that do to you? Your depth of your language will increase, and with that depth, you will easily learn other language without giving up your language, and English will also be learned very easily. कोई बड़ी बात नहीं. None of us we, you know, originally, if you see, पहले से ये तो कांग्रेस का रूल था ना 1950 से. There was a good rule that you begin with your mother tongue. This is how I studied. This is how many of my friends studied. Hundreds of students. We begin with your mother tongue. First to fourth you study in your. Please, excuse please. Yeah. So, yeah, first to fourth standard, उनको mute कर दो ना. First to fourth standard you studied in your mother tongue. Then English was introduced. Then 6th standard Hindi was introduced. Right? And that benefited us so much. And because I grew up close to, you know, a lot of Maharashtrian, I could pick up Marathi. And because there is a connection to your mother tongue, you know, other languages are easy to connect. I understand Gujarati, not because you are intelligent. Anybody, you know, जो बेंगलुरु में रहने वाले साधारण कन्नड़ी का लोग अभी पागल हो रहे थोड़े से, right? It was not the nature of Kannadigas, right? Beating up people. Again, politics. They would speak Tamil, they would speak Telugu, they speak Kannada, they would speak Malayalam, right? Somebody sent recently that video of KL Rahul speaking in Tamil, speaking in Hindi, speaking in Kannada, speaking in Tulu also. He knows Tulu also, right? भाषा जितना सीखोगे उतना आप ज्यादा प्रगति करोगे. बट लेकिन अपनी मातृभाषा छोड़ के केवल इंग्लिश के प्रति पढ़ोगे ना, गुलाम बन जाओगे. एंड इंडियंस आर सच गुलाम्स. भाषा सीखो बट इंग्लिश केवल, उसके प्रति इतना गौरव और अपने ही भाषा के प्रति इतना नफरत. You know, let us do yajna in our mind to destroy such politicians. रुद्र शक्ति को आह्वान करना चाहिए, इनको पूर्णतया नष्ट हो जाना चाहिए, because they will always flourish at the cost of ordinary people. And ordinary people are followers, driven by limitless emotion and harming their own self also. This is not Guru Parampara, right? Vyasadeva, Sambhaji Maharaj knew 16 languages. Krishna Deva Rai, he was a Telugu, but nobody knows exactly because he had so many Kannada poets, right? तो अगर अब हमारा जो एक गांव है उधर, where there is a Kannada school, but all the Pandurang temple, they sing the bhajan of Tukaram Maharaj, right? So therefore ये जो है ये गुरु शिष्य परंपरा का नहीं है. And always the politicians, the selfish, obsessive, slaughterers of human emotions, they should be cursed to such an extent for being such nasty people of becoming small minded. If you are grounded, yes, certainly mother tongue should be given the greatest importance, but not on the street, but actually learning it properly, classical Marathi, classical Kannada, classical Tamil, and you learn English also, you learn Hindi also, you learn Odia also, you learn Bengali also. आपको actually सीखो भी नहीं रहोगे ना, but you'll know the language properly. Thank you. Sorry for being so strong about this, because that's sad where people are gulams of English. I'm saying learn English, अच्छा से सीखो. Shakespeare पढ़ो, T.S. Eliot's को पढ़ो, right? The typical classical English को पढ़ो, but don't depend saying that okay, English is my savior. किसी यूपी में किसी ने मंदिर बनाया था, इंग्रजी देवी का, कि ये मेरे को उद्धार करेगी. अरे स्टैटिस्टिक देखो ना आप, हर एक देश में जो देश अपनी मातृभाषा के द्वारा सीखता है उसका पकड़ ज्यादा रहता है. It is much greater. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, those who were colonized by the Britisher, they want to study their medicine, they want to study their engineering, they want to study their in MBA, सब कुछ उसमें करना चाहते हैं. कोई ऐसा देश नहीं जो colonize नहीं हुआ. चाइना देखो, जापान देखो, कोरिया देखो, जर्मनी देखो, फ्रांस देखो, all of this, and South America देखो, they are also learning colonized language only. Therefore, there is no prosperity. There is always disruption. It's a sad part. ये सब कुछ, maybe sometime we will discuss this. Thank you. We'll stop here. Hare Krishna.